founder and CEO. I'm Sam. I'm the founder and CEO of Grant Engine. Really excited to have you joining us this morning or afternoon if you're on the East Coast. We're really pleased to partner today with BCLA and Will Freed, who is a key part of the event today. We've got an excellent lineup of content and people. I'll run through a couple of logistics before we dive in on some really useful content for you, and then we'll get rolling. If you have questions that you want us to answer, please put them in the chat as we go. That's a great way for us to monitor them. I can have eyes on them and we'll answer them as we go if we can. If not, we'll pick it up at the end. As well, if you are interested in participating in office hours, which is a time for us to learn more about Grant Engine and how we help you get millions of dollars in funding, please send a comment to the chat and we'll get you organized. We've already had a couple people interested in those as we wrap up. So with that, I really am pleased. I'm going to turn it over to Will to introduce himself and introduce BCLA. If you're not already aware of them, an excellent organization that brings together the many research institutes that are around the greater LA area, academic to industry translation in particular. But if you're not familiar with BCLA, please get familiar. And Will, let me turn it over to you and for you to introduce the organization as one of the leaders in the community.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Sam, for that warm introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm William Freed. I'm actually a 6-year PhD candidate at USC, but I'm also the president of BCLA, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. And our main goal is to basically promote the biotech ecosystem within Los Angeles and to help graduate students transition from academia to industry. And the main way we do this is to host events and webinars just like this to get people inspired, educated, and connected with the biotech industry. And yeah, that's my little spiel.
Great.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah, excellent. William has some slides as well that we will include in the integrated presentation that we send out after the webinar. So with that, we're going to get rolling here on the content. So you'll get those contents as a confirmation. If everyone can see my screen, can you see that screen, Will? Yeah, great.
Yeah, I see it.
Amazing. All right. We will, as a confirmation, send out these slides and a copy of the recording. They'll be on the landing page where you registered. So you don't need to take notes and roll through. So you'll get all those as we go. The agenda here is we're going to do a funding update and outlook about where we are in the government's administration of funding in a very chaotic and turbulent year, and what that means for the outlook in 2026. We're going to talk about AI and how to use AI to right to win, and where AI is useful, where it's not. And you'll hear as we talk about the funding update why that's particularly important. Andrea Bose, who's one of the team members here at Grant Engine, will walk us through a demonstration of Grant Engine's AI writing tool as a good tool to use. And then we're going to talk about long-term funding strategies. These are durable strategies that work over many years to generate many millions of dollars. And then if we have time, we'll do a quick background on Grant Engine. We really focus these webinars on bringing you content, insights, and perspectives around what's going on and what to do about it, as tools and resources to make your funding world more successful. This is not an infomercial. This slide really just speaks to who's talking with you today from Grant Engine and just who we are, what we stand for. And we really, that top line on this slide is really our bottom line. We have a centered mission around saving lives and extending the length of a quality life. That is why we're in business. That's why we carefully select companies and products and teams to work with, to bring differentiated tech in, get them R&D dollars, get those products in market to improve the standard of care. We do that, of course, by selectively helping clients write winning grants to get them R&D funding to build those products and bring them into the marketplace. We've got over 75 people. Most of those are PhDs. And we've got a number of things that make us successful and effective that you can hear about more if you'd like to learn more. But those really converge on one of our output metrics, which is win rate, which is our win rate is 2x to 4x better than the national average, usually. These days, it's more like 3x to 5x because win rates were so far down in 2024, but back to 2x to 4x here in 2025 for reasons we'll talk about in a minute. But phenomenal team. I am completely blessed to have a rock star team here on this call. Dr. Brian Bender, who's in the greater LA area, is one of our key members as a lead writer. And you can see the balance of the management team here on this slide. If you'd like to learn more as we go, please hit us up on LinkedIn, follow us for updates. That's a great way to keep current with us. A quick snapshot on the benefits in general of non-dilutive funding. If you're not familiar or you're not focused on this in a major way, or even if you are, here are some of the advantages of getting grant and contract funding. Of all the things you can do to better your company funding trajectory, there's no better ROI to spend a little bit amount of money, either internally in terms of resources or money, or engaging with an outside firm, than to get $250 to $3 million through the SBIR, maybe over $10 million from ARPA-H, and that kind of a return, right? It takes a lot of time to do most things, but spending a little bit of time and money to get money that is non-dilutive to your company's ownership, there's no better ROI than to go get non-dilutive funding. And when you get that funding, that provides a validation for you that goes beyond the dollars. Investors, partners, acquirers, the next round of funding see peer review as the gold standard for releasing an approval on a notice of award. And that validation gives you street cred with all of those key stakeholders. Everything takes a lot of time, including grant funding, but getting grant and contract funding is as fast or sometimes faster than raising equity money. And then importantly, as you work with a firm or do it yourself, writing a grant and understanding the logical flow of the approach that you will go through to develop that product sharpens your ability to build that product in a real world setting. There's a reason why Olympic athletes visualize success before they go down the luge. And that's because planning and effective visualization is tantamount to success. And your product will be a greater success if you have a detailed approach section in how to build that product. And it turns out that is an excellent axis in winning grants. So writing a grant enables your product success. And at the end of the day, that's your whole reason for having a company, is to bring that product to market. So writing a grant helps you bring your product to market. Okay, let's get to the latest and greatest of what's going on in our world. We want to talk about what's going on. We'll start with 24, what happened there, what's happening in the current year, and the outlook for 2026. What does it mean for you? And most importantly, how do you react to these dynamics and this turbulence and this chaos so that you grow your business with federal funding? Let's start with what happened in 2024. 2024 was an interesting year. AI had come on the scene in late 2022, and by 2024, people were using it. And you saw this is in the SBIR to the NIH, longitudinal approval rates by type of grant. So phase 2 in the top, fast track in light blue, phase 1 in black. So this is approval rates longitudinally. And you can see this long run secular, it's getting more competitive. But if you focus on 2024, hang on, I got it. There we go. It got the lowest approval rates ever in the history of the SBIR's TTR program. What drove that? What drove that was the volume of submissions. So COVID absolutely popped volume, but 2024 was the highest, near the highest volume of submissions. And 2024 had an increase in the budget amounts that were allowed to be spent. But what you saw here is a much greater mix of money spent, more dollars spent on fewer projects because the mix of projects went more to phase 2s than phase 1s. So fewer phase 1s happened. And why this happened is that AI, as we talked to review committees, we talked to program officers, why these approval rates were so low is that AI wrote a bunch of crap, basically. So AI is good at writing grants. It is not very good at winning grants on its own. And we'll talk about that more in a moment. What that happened is there was just a surge in volume, and higher volume, lower quality on average meant approval rates went down. Dollars went up, more dollars to bigger grants consumed the money. And so this is a lesson to learn we'll come back to in a minute for the future. Humans are still needed to win grants. AI is a very effective tool at helping write first drafts. And today that's really where it stops. We'll also come back to the importance of staying the course. So volume was up, approval rates were down, even though budgets went up. So that was 2024. And there's a lesson there around using tools effectively for your success. That brought us into 2025. And 2025 is really a story of, we're at today a continuing resolution. So we have the same amount of budget funding for the NIH, for most of the DoD went up a bit, and NSF has gone down a bit. CDMRP has gotten cut quite a bit. But this slide says that the total dollars spent in the government went up by about 11% compared to 2024. This is fiscal 2020, not fiscal, but essentially calendar year 2025. So total dollars spent went up. But if you look at the dollars spent on the NIH, dollars went down in this calendar year considerably. And this continues to underrun 2025. The NIH, as one institute, or one agency, I should say, across many, supports a lot of life sciences. It's the largest medical research funding agency in the world. There was a big decrease, over almost $2 billion in grants terminated. There's still funding going back in litigation, going back and forth with certain universities. And yet one of the greatest ironies is that we're under a continuing resolution, is that the budget approved in 2025 was at 2024 levels, right? And so there are exceptions. The congressionally directed medical research program was cut by 57%, but the NIH has a congressional approval to spend the same amounts in 2025 as it did in 2024, but it is running underspending by quite a bit year to date. So what does that mean in terms of implications and the conclusions for what you should do now and also in the future? The biggest driver in 2024 volume increase was AI. Quality matters. Another interesting thing that happened for us in 2024 is that our win rate, which we measure by fundable score, an impact score of 29 or below, actually got better. So quality matters. And then in 2025, what has happened thus far this year, and we see this in the outlook as well, is that the next two bullets are important. Volume is down considerably in terms of number of submissions. Reviewers are reporting 1/2 the volume that it normally was. National Cancer Institute reported 1/3 as many submissions as they typically get. And again, the 2025 NIH budget is the same under continuing resolution as fiscal 24. So this is perhaps the greatest irony, is that in the turbulence and the chaos that is happening in our marketplace, there is as much money that can and is congressionally directed to be spent, but a lot of people are on the sidelines. And what that means is that the demand for that money has gone down significantly because there's so many people on the sidelines, but the supply, the amount of money that's available, has been maintained the same. And so ironically, today, there is a better chance of getting a grant funded than there was in 2024. And so these are the changing dynamics that happen. And with where we are today, the fiscal year ends in about 27 days. The fiscal 2026 budget has been approved through the big, beautiful bill, but there is appropriations that need to happen. And that is now in committee at the Senate and also the House. And there is bipartisan commitment to keeping the NIH funding and other key scientific funding at the same levels. They're actually talking about a slight increase, despite the big, beautiful bill. And so we're going to see that shake out as we go throughout the year. A possible outcome is that we enter into a continuing resolution for October 1st, or there's a government shutdown again. But there appears to be appropriation level support at NIH to keep it. You hear senators saying, we've got your back. And the takeaway here for you is that we don't know what's going to happen. It's very difficult to predict the future. But in February, March, April of this year, our guidance to our clients was stay the course, stay committed, improve your quality. It's going to get more competitive. Ready yourself for that, but keep submitting. And the clients that followed that advice, which is almost all of them, and new clients that took that advice, are benefiting now from this environment where it's easier to get a grant than it typically is, because so many people are on the sidelines. That philosophy, that dynamic in the marketplace of having as much, possibly more funding, we believe can happen in 2026. But I don't think it's going to be as bad as a 40% cut, which is what's in the big, beautiful bill for NIH. And even if it is, you should still stay the course, because what happened in this year is that more people went on the sidelines than stayed in, and that made it easier to get funding. And I think that noise and that volume is a red herring. It's a distraction. that if you stick your head in the sand or you just stay on the sidelines, that is the most dangerous thing to do. But recognizing that it's going to probably get more competitive and recognizing that you need to stay the course is the right best course of action. So that's our guidance to our clients. That's our guidance that we follow internally, and that's our guidance to new clients. A couple of key points as well is that in January, individual institute centers were evaluating grants. That was a very difficult review submission cycle. That has been brought back centrally to Center for Scientific Review, and that will expected to continue. Reviewers, more and more, we think this is a good thing, are being guided to evaluate the commercial potential of the project. Rather than, is this an interesting hypothesis? The SBIR program, companies are really in business to improve the standard of care for patients. So it's about the commercial impact of your product and project. That means more clinicians are on study section, more reviewers are being trained and evaluating your company grant on the real world application of your product that improves the standard of care to get improved outcomes. So that is a very important distinction if you're in an academic setting compared to being in a real world company setting. And that's really what Grant Engine focuses on, is on companies. So I'm going to walk through the next two slides quite quickly. This is also up for discussion and debate, and we'll see this happen or not, but there has been a reorganization of ARPA-H and BARDA together now under a new Office of Healthy Futures. There's talk about NIH going from 27 institute centers to 8, and then AHA got set up under RFK Jr. that reconfigured a number of institutes that some used to be under CDC and others were under NIH, more under HHS rather, more broadly. Those are under now Administration for a Healthy America. There is a cut to NIH in the Big Beautiful Bill. That is very much being resisted by Congress on a bipartisan level. And so we'll see what ends up happening in terms of the budget total approval process. If you're familiar with this, budgets get legally approved, then there's an appropriation that is actually what the agencies need to spend, and then there's the agencies actually allocating that budget. So we're in the appropriation phase of that process, and there does appear to be support. We do believe it's going to get more competitive in general, because NIH budget, we believe, is going to come down. We believe NSF budget is going to continue to come down. It's going to be more competitive. So expect pay lines to get tighter. That's the not great news. But there is also some good news. The SBIR budget, the SBIR's TTR program gets reauthorized usually every 3 years. There is a bill circulating the House right now that is a call to have that SBIR TTR program turned into law, permanent law, so that it's not renewed, but it's in the law. And there's also talk, and there's bipartisan support for this, that there will be an increase. Today, the SBIR's TT budget is just under 4% of every agency's budget that's over $100 million, right? Just under 4%. This bill would call for it to go to 8%, so more than double. A fun fact is that if you happen to look at Project 2025, which by and large the current administration is following its actions, and you went to page 755 of Project 2025, there is a call for an increase in the SBIR program. It doesn't name a percent, but there's a call for an increase. So that's one, call it, data point that would point to this. And then there's preponderance of evidence that of all government subsidy programs, any government program from food stamps to farm subsidies, the SBIR's TTR has the best or among the best return on investment for job creation, company creation, economic growth, company advantage, and importantly, country advantage. As we think about biotechnology being a national security issue, around gene editing, around innovation leadership, continuing to maintain what I believe still is maybe a narrow lead of the United States on a global stage, and an innovation basis. Continuing to have an SBR program can enable national security, and increasing that budget will enable this. This is not going to happen by itself, and it needs your help. So if you're interested in more funding for companies, you can click on democracy.io. That hyperlink will be in the slides you get. That'll give you, put in your zip code, it'll give you your congressional representatives, and you can write a letter to them on platform. And if you want, there's a starting place for writing a personal message. Please tailor that for yourself, but that's a path as well to advocate. So let's start the first poll. We're curious what the market thinks about the budget outlook. I'm always curious about what the markets are wise, and I'm curious what all the participants here, of what you think in terms of what's going to happen with the future budget. And I know the question says DARPA, but take that to mean any life science funding. I think we had some legacy question here from a previous webinar. So this is life science funding from the federal government is what you're answering there. So Dan, when the responses stop coming in, please publish the results of that webinar, of that poll survey. Thanks. Okay, let's talk about AI for a second. I'm going to walk through this slide and then hand it over to Andrea to do a quick demo of we think, the leading AI writing platform. So as I mentioned before, AI is very good about putting words on a page. And it'll write content. But what you really want AI to do is to write winning content. And to write winning content, there are two key things that are needed. One is entry criteria of what you need before you start. And then the second is content that you add to that AI. So we believe, and we've been writing grants, thousands of them for going on 10 years, you need to start, before you start writing an AI, you need a good specific aims page, you need a grant thesis of how and why the grant's going to win, and you need relevant backgrounders, deck, technical briefs, data, papers, et cetera. And you need a recognition that even if you're good at prompting, you need or you use our quite evolved tool, that our tool is new and it's evolving. And at this point with this stuff is you have the right story, right? That's what you have that headset, you have that awareness going in. AI isn't going to give you the right story. You need to have that going in. And then using AI to author the right best story requires some perspective and adding a value to AI writing. If you know how and why your grant is going to win, AI will help you write it. That content build is really a pyramid of communication. You have at the top a single sentence that why that grant should get funded, why it's going to improve the standard of care. You have the right level of detail for the relevant sections, in particular, the approach section. You have to have that as well for innovation and significance, but that is particularly sticky and relevant in the approach section. You're articulating the differentiation of your product. That's a function of what else is out there as the standard of care, or what's coming down the road as the standard of care. Who are the other players there in the market space? Your technological advantages that perform on the variables that matter. You have preliminary data, there's evidence that it works. You're at a technology readiness level that matches the grant you're going after. You've got a rock star investigative team and collaborators, and you've got a protected position through your IP. Team and collaborators are a key element to the reviewers looking at that and saying, I have confidence in the credibility of that team. And also that your organization has some funding and corroboration there. And AI will help you author the right best story for your product space, for your competitive set. What AI is not very good is converging at that final written product. It does not know the benchmark for performance of what's going to win, what's not going to win. That is where experience comes into play. And you obviously want your grant to get funded. A good backup goal on a first submission is to have it competitively scored. The AI will not tell you that, unfortunately. We are working on this, but the industry's not there yet. But that means that's clearly, though, where you want to be and what you want to do. And so getting help of knowing where your grant needs to be to win is a really useful tool, because that's your mark of success. You can engage with Grant Engine to do external review only, which we've got a panel of over 35 reviewers that sit on study section. We offer that, plus adding value to your grant creation as a standalone offering. Or you can engage your peers to help you, or you can engage Grant Engine to help you. Either you're writing the grant and we're supporting you, plus adding external review, or we can do full flagship where we're writing the grant with your domain expertise. So with that, I want to turn it over to Andrea to do a quick and salient alpha demonstration. So I'm going to stop sharing and I will talk about the poll results when we come on back. So Andrea, over to you.
All right, let me get this pulled up here. So Alpha by Streamline is built around two core tools. You have the Discover to find funding opportunities, and Apply to help you draft, strengthen, and win proposals. What makes it powerful is that we're scanning constantly, pulling from 96 different federal and state level sources. So you're not just relying on one or two databases. You can search across the funding landscape, filter down by funding type, amount, or even early notices like RFIs or NOIs. So you're tracking opportunities before they hit the mainstream.
Andrea, I'm sorry to interrupt you. There we go. Now share. Go.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to run a quick search. Here we're going to go with cancer therapeutics, and you can do several different filters through here. Give it just a moment. So whenever it first comes up, you'll see this one says active, closed, no due date found. You can do filters like apply it being just the active grants. You can add amounts that you want in here, your minimums, your maximums. You can do types. This is where you would filter for the NOIs or RFIs or just grants. Let's look at this first one here. So whenever you look at one of these, you're going to see a high-level summary, and you're going to have your eligibility, your deadlines, your project requirements, and all of that in one place. If something looks promising, you can save it to your bookmarks or set yourself up for notifications on it. You can also, when you're going through here, save it, and you can also save your search. And with this, the save search, you can title it whatever you want, get notifications daily, weekly, or monthly. And with those notifications, if you set it to daily, it's just going to send you notifications if there is a new grant that pops up or something new comes up. It's not going to send you something every day if there's nothing to send. And within each of these, you actually can chat directly with the grant itself. Think of it like having an expert on the RFP. So we're going to ask it a question here so I can show you guys. So our question is going to be, would a collaboration between a university lab and biotech startup meet the eligibility requirements here? And this AI is only going to be searching through this single grants documents. So answers are grounded and contextual. So it's saying yes, that it would work. It gives you all the information as to why, and it's going to source it so that you know there's no hallucinations there. It'll show you exactly where it found the information. So now let's look at what happens if you find the right opportunity. So for our demos, we use a made-up town from Pawnee, Indiana. If you've seen Parks and Rec, that's where we got a lot of the data from here. And I know there was a lot of documents there. You don't need that much information to be successful. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to pull up one that we've already done. Now, Alpha creates a secure workspace where we load your past proposals, reference docs, anything you've done to help build a foundation. Nothing you upload trains our models. It's locked so that you and anyone you give access to can see it, and that's it. And the AI helps merge your past work with new requirements, making the draft stronger and tailored without having to start from scratch. So here we're going to have a notice of funding opportunity from the Department of Transportation. It's 58 pages. You've probably seen something like this before, page after page of dense text that makes your eyes glaze over and your head start to ache. But Alpha is designed to take all of that unstructured content that is dense in dense paragraph form and turn it into something useful, keeping track of all the to-dos and making a project management system out of it. It shreds the solicitation into a structured system you can actually work with. It gives you two big advantages. It helps you design a competitive approach from the very beginning. It doubles as a project management tool so you can keep track of every single requirement. And you can see it successfully extracted, your timelines, your key details, proposal structures and deliverables. And then moving on here to the overview, here just gives you a more detailed picture of the grant. And from here we move into eligibility. This right here is one of the first native AI features of the platform. It looks at who you are as an applicant and what you've done in the past, then compares it to the requirements of the solicitation. If something's unclear, you can go scroll through these things here. It's going to highlight any potential risk areas. Most of the time, the things that it's going to highlight here is just because the system doesn't have enough information yet. It's not going to know absolutely everything. So you can just kind of read through here and see, oh, I meet those reporting requirements. We have everything that we need. And then you just kind of move on. So then it's going to recommend a proposal strategy. It does this by analyzing past winners, current agency priorities, and even changes in administration. The tool suggests how to frame your project so it aligns with the program's objectives and the funder's mission. And if you're competing for bids, you can use the competitive matrix. This shows who's won similar awards in other states, how many awards were made, and how you stack up. That way you can decide if it's worth your time to pursue. Then next we move into the compliance matrix. This is the last step before drafting begins. So think of this as a structured checklist of every requirement in the solicitation. Instead of manually tracking 30 pages of must include items, everything is laid out clearly so nothing slips through the cracks. And once that foundation is set, we get to go to the fun part, actually drafting the proposal. So Alpha creates an outline for each deliverable. So you're never starting from a blank page. So let's look at the project description as an example. So I'm going to clear this out so you guys can see it, start from scratch. And click Create Outline. And when I click the Create Outline, the system scans the review criteria, the solicitation requirements, and any formatting rules. So from that, it generates a structured outline with prompts, essentially telling you, here's what you should include in this section. And you will have full control. You can reorder things, delete things, add sections if you see fit. If you have experience writing grants and feel like something you want to add to it, you're more than welcome to do it. So once this finishes, Loading. And it tells you the entire step of the way, you know, what it's doing, what it's writing, what it's building. Okay, and then get started. So here, if you go to one of the sections, you know, you can highlight it and click answer. And it is going to look at it's going to pull from the documents that you've uploaded from your project, and begin drafting content tailored to that solicitation. And as it writes here, once it's done, you can make edits. It's going to have a little section at the bottom where you can tell it to add different details that you want in there, or you can ask it to make it shorter. There's a lot of flexibility with it. You can search the web. You can search for just specific literature and add things to it. But let's hit make it shorter. And it will redo it, condense it for you, and you can insert it into what you've got here. So the key is that each time you refine and you save and you change things in here to build it out to fit you, Alpha's learning more about your project, and it carries that context forward. So the result is every new section is faster, easier, and more cohesive. Instead of reinventing the wheel, you're building a consistent, fundable story. And the full picture here is from discovering the right opportunities without missing a beat, to shredding dense solicitations into something you can actually work with, to drafting proposals that are compliant, competitive, and faster to produce. The whole point is to take the overwhelm out of the grant funding and make your process more strategic. So instead of chasing opportunities or pulling all-nighters, you're focused on what matters most, putting your best ideas forward and actually winning funding. And that's it for that.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, Andrea.
Wow.
So if you've got any questions along the way, please throw them into the chat as we go. Let me share my second screen, and we're going to wrap up here in about 5 minutes, and then leave time for 5 or 10 minutes, leave time for questions. Hopefully you can see that. So this is the poll results. We had that are shared. We had, okay, I apologize. Let's actually reset. This is not the right first question. This was more how familiar you are with funding. So that's actually not the question we were trying to ask. My apologies. We'll look at that for question 2, but this is more familiarity. So let's actually pivot away from that. That was really more for what familiarity versus budget outlook. But I think most people are familiar, so that's good. So this next couple of slides looks at just a general strategy for an individual project, and then we're going to go to company strategy. So at an individual project level, using Discover on our platform on Alpha, or looking at targeted solicitations is a good idea. Targeted solicitations are more relevant. Planning ahead is tantamount to success. We have a blog post actually on our website that points out that if you plan earlier, your win rate goes up considerably. That is because it gives you time to refine things towards the end, versus an improved quality, and being proactive really matters. Doing your research, going on USA Spending or NIH Reporter, what are similar products that have been funded? Who's the source? Who's the program official? And engaging with the program official. This is one of the things that's also unique for company grants versus academic grants, is that the program official is much more engaged and will help give you an assessment of, yes, it's worthwhile to submit, or after you submitted, parsing that summary statement. So engage with that program official. They will also lobby for you in council to get something funded. In any product development, engage with users and recruit internal champions in that agency, in that customer base. That knowing who your customer is and how that product will be successful is essential. And then again, another vote for being early. Late stage mistakes can happen. Submitting a grant the day of the deadline is a hallmark for likelihood of mistakes. Things can slow to a crawl 2 days before the submission deadline. And so starting early improves a higher likelihood of funding. At the company level, these are the 6 funding strategies that we have seen work with our clients. And each of these are unique, and you can usually employ 1, maybe 2 of these. But think of these taking years ahead, years out in the future. You're executing every day. The first is starting small and then snowballing. Maybe it's a accelerated grant. Maybe your university is going to give you a $10,000 award or a $30,000 award. Using that to go get a phase 1 SBI, or using that phase 1 SBIR to get a phase 2. Maybe then elevating to a DoD grant or an ARPA-H pursuit. Starting small and then growing in the future is not just a great way to get started, but a great way to continue to grow into bigger things later. Reviewers look to the investigative team and who else is on the grant from a collaborator. Think top 2-3% of thought leaders in your field, or someone that has a great publication track record, someone that has real podium power. Strategic partnerships in industry really make a big difference. So leveraging those as augmenting your grant strategy. Always one step ahead means, and this is allowed, using your current grant to generate data, assuming you're still meeting the aims in an ethical way of the current grant, to generate data for your next grant. You will always be in a gap of funding if you're not doing that in a thoughtful way. If you have a platform tech for the NIH, there's a great opportunity to go after multiple funding opportunities, but to do that, you have to go deep for your first product. Think about your platform company as it's going to be successful by doing progressive deep dives on individual products coming off of your platform. And by positioning, let's say, a therapeutics platform into first, let's say it's a GBM, neuro brain cancer in kids as your first platform. You got to go deep. You got to build a product for that first indication. And by doing that, you're going to have NIH will fund you there. They will not fund generally platforms. There are exceptions, but generally they want to go deep on a product. And by going deep on that one product, you are enabling your platform. And then you can submit a second grant and series of grants for that second product off of your platform. That's a way to play that game at the NIH. The NSF, they generally will fund platforms, but that money is quite a bit less. So there's a platform opportunity. If you have equity or you're planning on getting equity, using grant funding to pay for program development that you are going to spend equity on is amazing, because that frees up your equity to spend on other things or extend your runway. Or if you've got a core program that you're spending equity on, you can add a second program or a third program using grant funding to diversify your portfolio. That provides risk management and increases the value of your company. For companies that have a faster R&D cycle time to bring products to market, and I've done this at a number of my own companies and for our clients, this concept of a virtuous circle. You propose a project, get award funding, build the product, bring it to market, and that R&D and product launch cycle time is, call it, after the grant finishes, 3 to 9 months. You bring that product to market, generate revenue. This works extremely well for research tools, certain med tech products as well. Sometimes discovery platforms as a service is a great way to do this, where you're selling to big pharma, medium pharma. The point of Virtuous Circle is you're bringing a product through R&D, you're getting funded, bringing it through R&D, bringing it to market, showing proof to the funding groups that you can build your product and bring it to market. And that's the point of these programs. When you do that, the NIH, the NSF, the Department of Defense looks at you as a winner, and they like to back winners. So going after your second program and third program, and that virtuous circle delivers an upward spiral for you. That's at the company level for long-term durable strategies. And here are some additional points at the company level that are relevant to pursue. Because it's going to be more competitive in the future, we believe that you need to expand the volume and diversification of your sources of funding. Pursue federal funding, pursue state funding, pursue nonprofit funding, pursue global sources of funding that are outside the United States. You can evaluate them. That link will get you to Shredder. That's a great way to put in a solicitation, and as Andrea very helpfully walked us through, evaluate whether or not this solicitation is for you. We are also supporting clients with equity funding. We're not a broker-dealer. We're really there to bring you lists and contact information for equity investors. So you can click on that link to fill out a form, and we'll follow up with you there. But back to the non-dilutive funding front, pursue a higher volume of quality submissions. Quality really wants to be in bold underline. That's the name of the game. And then when you do that, you have to be persistent. It is very likely that you're not going to win it on the first chance. Our win rate is the highest when on first submissions for Grant Engine, but you have to be persistent to stay with it. Diversify, broaden your relationships, recognize after you get an award that there are new rules in the payment management system. And a very important thing is foreign risk assessment. This has become incredibly difficult to pass through, and the tripwires that can get you into a no grant award because of foreign risk assessment are becoming more and more frequent. So we have a very useful blog post on our website that you can reference to do that. Dan, I don't know. Well, actually, we're going to go to questions. We're going to skip poll 2 and go to poll 3 here in a second. The company strategy here matches find, win, and manage, right? So that's lines up with where we are. We have a lot of experience in finding, winning, and handling accounting and foreign risk assessments, and certainly winning grants. So that's useful. That's really what we wanted to share from a content perspective. I've got a couple more slides. Let's just check in on questions. Okay, yeah. Okay, let's do questions, and then I'll come back to Grant Engine a little bit. So Alex had asked, I think you were asking about Alpha. Does this integrate with reference management software yet? It does not yet. That's on our future roadmap, and we would integrate probably with Zotero, but you would export and manage. That's an important piece. We're aware of that. So you would write it and export it. We recognize that's an important feature, but it's not yet there. It does allow you to map back to where certain writing content was referenced from. So there is a link back, but not as a true like EndNote or Zotero way. The security question is an excellent one. This is very important. We have a different firewall for each organization. So it's for all users on a given organization, they have access to everything in there. And we're working with a number of universities. So you would have your own organization for your lab, for example. I mean, you can opt people in or out if you want. Everything is set for you. It's secure in a SOC 2 environment. We don't train on your data, and that is firewalled for your own users there. The pricing of Grant Engine services. Let me flash up a screen here and address the pricing question. So we have, this is in the win phase. So we have find, win, and manage. For existing clients, solicitation searches are free. Discover, we have using the platform, you can do a self-service and you get a few searches for free, and then it's very low cost. We do a manual search if you want for $1,000. Under win phase, let me jump over to manage. We have a price list for accounting. It's a flat monthly amount. There's no setup cost. It's very economical. And of course, the grant pays for it. Under the win phase, we really have 3 buckets plus hourly. So really every offering of anything you might want for whatever level of service you want. Alpha is $199 a month for as long as you want to use the product, and a very low success fee if you get an award. So that's super inexpensive. This is less than the cost of a cup of coffee if you bought one every day. So extremely economical. On the far right side, flagship, this is when we are writing the grant. We need your involvement and input on your product, your team. We need comprehensive written feedback, but we're writing the grant and we've got a world-class team and delivering world-class service. This costs single-digit thousands of dollars to very low double-digit thousands of dollars, plus a very nominal success fee, depending on the size of the grant. We're happy to walk you through that. And then in the middle, you can either use Alpha or not, but we have grantsmanship and external review where you write the grant, but we're adding key value here. This is mid thousands of single digits. So think like 3 to 6K, depending on the size of the grant and how much work you want to do. Optimize, we submit the grant for you and add some more detailed work on the budget. And then the base, we don't do those 2 things, but we do a lot here. There's a lot of value here in adding grantsmanship from an expert lead writer, providing program manager support, and importantly, adding reviewers that review your grant and give you feedback. We have 3 reviewers for every review we do. So that's our pricing strategy. Dan, you can pull back that third questionnaire. So that's our pricing question. And we're right at, yeah, Dan, you can delete that question. Let's not post the question right now. Thanks. So if there are no other questions, we're right at 1 o'clock. As a next step, if you would like to work with Grant Engine, please reach out to us. Our website is a great place to do that. As a process from here, we're happy to meet with you to talk more about our process, our economics, and our differentiators. We would ask you to fill out a product development funding strategy survey, a PDFS. We certainly have an NDA to protect you. That dossier we get will protect your information under an NDA and give us the 411 on your product, what you want to go do to get funding. And we will spend time researching that product, what it needs to do to be competitive, to get an award. And then we will meet with you for about an hour with one of our subject matter experts. Brian on our team is one of those SMEs. We've got a whole cadre of additional folks, almost all of, let's see, yeah, all of whom are on our delivery team as well. And we'll spend an hour with you walking through your product, asking questions, answering your questions, and really confirming that you're going to be competitive, you're going to be ready now, and confirming our path forward together. And if you're not ready now, we'll tell you why we think so. And that is all free. That's all complimentary. And it's a really useful mechanism to really validate a path forward for you. So that's what will be next steps. Our website has lots of different ways to reach out to us. You can also just email us on funding@grantengine.com or contact us on our website. So that's a little bit about who we are. We're here to save lives. And so we'd be delighted to have a conversation with you about your differentiated product. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much for joining. It was a pleasure to be with you today. If we could have the Grant Engine team stick around for a minute, that would be amazing. We'll jump over. If you did want, now that everyone's gone, if you did want office hours afterwards, please reach out to us or just put it in the chat and we can schedule that now or later. So great. Okay.